What's going on, everybody? How's it hanging? How's it happening? You guys know what it is. This is Kevin from the Chord Progression podcast, where they rocks or rock and I'll thrive. Happy Thursday, everybody. It is May 6th, and guys, this one is absolutely incredible. So at the beginning of the year, I made a video, the first one, the Kevin Figures Out series for 2021, which was Kevin Figures Out Diamante, if I like Diamante or not. And the answer was yes. I do like her music. I like her style, and I'd like to see what happens in the future. Well, Diamante is a brand new album coming out on May 7th, 2021. So if you're listening to the day the podcast releases, yes, it will be out tomorrow. If you're listening to it anytime after the day the podcast releases, go check it out now. It's called American Dream, and it kind of comes full circle because holy crap, I can't let get to talk to Diamante about this whole entire album. We go in deep with different things on just making the best out of situations, what it's like to go to college and produce an album independently, and then we go through the album. And I'll put it this way about the album, guys. You're going to want to check it out because you're going to see this amazing growth in terms of her musicianship, in terms of her voice. You're going to see just everything you want to see from it is going to be there. Everything you want to hear from it is going to be there. So enough with this. Enough of the intro. Please welcome Diamante to the Chord Progression podcast. Are you ready? Because you guys want to listen to this one. Let's just get to it. Let's go! Yeah! Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, listeners of the Chord Progression podcast. This one is kind of surreal to me because at the beginning of the year, my buddy Lance, shout out to Lance, was like, hey, check out Diamante and maybe make a video to try and figure out if you like her music or not. I took his suggestion, said, okay, went through it, and at the end of the video, I'm like, you know what? In the end, do I like her music? Yes, absolutely. Put the big old thumbs up on that one. And this is the second time I made a video about an artist from that series that I've had on the podcast. So without further ado, I don't even need to give her a full introduction because you already know who she is. Everybody, Diamante. So Diamante, welcome to the Chord Progression podcast.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, man.
Thanks for being on. How's everything going in your neck of the woods of the United States today?
You know, it's going. I'm just excited, gearing up for this album release. Rocking and rolling over here.
Pretty much, hey, it's better than over here right now because the day that we were shooting this, it snowed here.
Oh, snap. It's cold over there.
Yeah, like past week, it was like, oh yeah, you got like 50, 60 degree weather. This is great. I mean, Sunday I was walking around like literally in a cutoff shirt, just doing whatever. And all of a sudden today, yeah, I'm looking outside and it's snowing. I'm thinking, how the hell does this happen? But then again, that's what I get for living in Wisconsin.
That's what happens. Yeah, I'm surprised actually. Here in LA, it's like way hotter than normal. So it must be that time of year.
It must be the time of year where, you're getting the warm weather and winter is giving us the one last, like, ha, I still got you one more time kind of thing.
Absolutely, yeah.
So before we really jump into everything, Diamante, I always like to start the podcast out this way just because for those who know you, they're going to know who you are. But for those who don't want to get to know you a little bit more, I always ask 3 different questions. The first 2, very, very simple, very upfront. I mean, it'll be very easy. The last one, though, kind of puts you on the spot a little bit, and it's always my favorite one. So first, A, what is your name? Very simple. 2, with Diamante, what do you do? Again, that's also very simple. But 3 is the fun one. Want to know a little like fun fact or fun wacky story that will potentially make me fall out of my chair and laugh and just see what happens because I have had that happen before. I've heard some crazy like tour stories, on the road stories. I have heard a band where they chloroformed one of their members, took him to a beach in Florida and buried him halfway in the sand to make it look like his legs got cut off by a shark. Fun stuff.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Number 1, my name is Diamante. Number 2, I sing rock music and write and perform and all that jazz. Number 3, I actually have the perfect story for this because it's been so ingrained in my memory ever since I was 18. So on probably my second tour ever, I was opening for the band called Hinder. And we were on their tour bus one night after the show. And the bass player tells me, hey, do you want to see something really cool? And I'm thinking, yeah, it's going to be like a magic trick or like a card thing or some kind of cool thing. He pulls his pants down. He takes his balls out. And he lights it on fire and stands there for a solid 30 seconds. And I'm over here like, what is going on? What? And his buddy like takes it out and I'm over here freaking out and they go, oh no, that's every night. That's just his trick he does every single night. So I'll never forget that. And it's ingrained in my brain forever.
The only way that could have potentially been made better had been if Great Balls of Fire by Jerry Lee Lewis was playing in the background while he did that. It could have literally been like this full on like circus style performance right there.
Yeah. That was traumatic, but like in the best way possible.
Well, now if I ever get the guys from Hinder on the show, I'm going to have to ask him that question. Be like, okay, so what was it with the bass that lit his balls on fire? Because I've heard the story now and I really want to know like what all came of this, because now I'm kind of intrigued by that. However, that is one of the funnier stories I've ever heard in terms of just the crazy out of nowhere, out of the box things that have happened. So yeah, I'm going to remember this one for a while.
And like the craziest thing is he was just completely unfazed. Like nothing going on. Everything's cool, you know, just ball sack on fire. No big deal.
Just kind of sitting there thinking, oh, you know what? It's just a lovely day, you know, maybe a little hot down there, but you know what? Nothing too bad. It's like, dude, your balls are literally on fire. Yeah, so whatever.
So yeah, crazy tour story.
Definitely a crazy tour story. And I mean, hopefully at some point in the future, hopefully in 2021, you know, with touring looking like it's going to resume, especially with different festival announcement coming out, seeing that you're going to be playing in Incarceration as well. Maybe some of those tour stories, those crazy ones will start to come back up again and just really get going. So I'm always happy to hear like what stories are going to end up coming up at some point, you know, at the end of this year or going into next year as well. Just I'm looking forward to the good stuff, because for every single band, they're just waiting to get back, and yourself as well, just waiting to get back on the road, get back touring, especially after over a year at this point of just kind of sitting on the shelf in a way and just having to just do everything at home, especially with you with working on this whole entire new album.
Yeah, man, this last year has been such a trip for me. I did end up doing 2 like virtual live stream concerts just to sort of fill that void of not playing shows, but there's just no comparison, you know, when the crowd isn't there to feed off of and you're not meeting everybody after the shows. It's not the same thing. So I can't wait to go back to real shows again.
I can't wait either for shows to come back. However, when I saw you're playing Incarceration, I just thought to myself, I maybe picked the wrong festival that weekend, because I got tickets for Blue Ridge, which is the same weekend. I was like, maybe I picked the wrong one. Oh, well.
That's a bummer, man. I didn't know they were the same weekend. That's crazy.
Yeah, that first weekend after Labor Day, so it's like the 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th, I think. Yeah, it's the same weekend. I looked, I was just like, because I saw the lineup come out the day before we shot this. I'm like, oh, shoot, I want to see who, like, if there's a lot of parallels between Incarceration and Blue Ridge. I'm like, okay, and I literally saw your name pop up on Incarceration. I'm like, okay, maybe there's like some weird surprise way where all of a sudden I'm going to find somewhere like a month later, all of a sudden, because Blue Ridge just slowly announcing lineup like 2 artists every single day. I'm like, I'm hoping all of a sudden I get to see Diamante show up in there and be like, okay, now I actually get to see her play live.
Oh, man. Yeah, I have a couple festivals lined up for September, and Incarceration's the only one I've announced, but I'm so stoked to play that one just because I've like year after year, obviously not 2020, but year after year, I've just seen them post their lineups and always thinking, you know, like one day I would love to play this festival. It just looks so cool. The fact that it's music and tattoos. I love tattoos, even though I don't have any. I know that's weird, but I am a fan of tattoos. So I'm so excited to play this one.
I'll say that it does sound a little weird. However, I am the same way where I don't have any tattoos. I kind of think of it as like, if I want to get something, I'd get it. But you know what? I'd rather spend the money doing other things. But like when I was in college, I would watch Ink Master like crazy, because I was always interested to see what these artists would come up with, all the different challenges, all these different styles. And it just kind of seen my friends get tattoos, thinking, okay, you know, maybe you could do something this style if you're looking for this. And people are thinking, how do you know so much about this? I'm like, for some reason, I'm paying attention to it. I don't know why, and I don't have a desire to get one, but
I think it's because I'm surrounded by so many people that do have tattoos, and they're talking about it all the time. And I've watched like 3 episodes of Ink Masters, and I'm sitting there like, oh yeah, that's a good tattoo, or that's a bad tattoo, as if I know anything about tattoos at all.
Sometimes that's how you learn, like with going through music and like really like deep diving into it the way that I've done it. I had no idea what the hell I was doing when I first started out. And now it's just somewhere I go through each album that I get to go through. And it's just, at first, at times I'm like, okay, maybe I wasn't the biggest fan of it, but then I have to take a deeper look into it. I did the same thing with the new Escape the Fate album, where I'm like, at first I'm like, I might want to pull back from this. Then I did a deeper look into it. And there were some just these subtleties that just made my mind just think, what the hell? How did I miss that in the first place? So it's just the way that I go about it. It's just like I get to find out so much more about it. It's kind of the same way with the tattoos as well. It's like the more you're ingrained in it, the more it's like, oh yeah, you can point it out. But if you don't, it's like you don't have any tattoos. How do you know this stuff? I'm just kind of ingrained in it. That's the way it is.
Yeah, and like the funny thing too is I'm the same way with any cooking competition shows. Like I'm a huge Gordon Ramsay fan, so I'm always watching Hell's Kitchen and all those kind of shows. And I don't even cook that well. I can probably do breakfast and that's about it. And I'm like, yeah, I know exactly. Oh, that's a bad dish. Oh no, that's a great dish. Like I can't even do any of these things on my own. But yeah.
Pretty much anytime I get to watch one of those shows, pretty much I'll stick with Hell's Kitchen because I just want to hear Gordon Ramsay yell at all the contestants, call them all these just random obscenities and just yell, "Where's the lamb sauce?" Or call someone a donkey, all the good stuff. What are you, an idiot sandwich? Yes, an idiot sandwich. If I was cooking on that show, that would have been me like literally the first day. However, every time I see a food dish, all I care about is I don't care if it's presented good. Does it taste good? That's what matters to me. I just want to eat. That's pretty much it.
Yeah. I'm the same exact way.
Just two of the same people. There we go. But of course, the biggest reason why we have you on today is the fact that your brand new album, American Dream, is coming out on May 7th, 2021. And the fact that you worked on this whole entire thing independently, released independently, had it produced independently as well, just going the whole entire independent route on this. I've seen other bands go the independent route as well. The most recent one that kind of did something similar had been While She Sleeps with their album Sleep Society, and seeing how that turned out and how that's turned out as well. I mean, it gives a lot of like positive affirmation that this move is potentially the right move, especially at this time.
Yeah, and I think it totally depends at what stage you are in your career. Like when I was 18 and I was like brand new, I didn't have the resources or the relationships to be completely independent. At that time, I needed a record label and I needed their big push and the entire team of people. And I think after that whole first album cycle, that was the time for me to say, and not like I had much of a choice because the label did choose not to take the second album, but I kind of took that as an opportunity, like, hey, I've kind of done it already the first time around. Maybe now I can just do it on my own and see what happens.
That's a really interesting way to look at it, especially with the fact that I'm kind of surprised that the label didn't want to take a second album, just seeing the fact that, especially after you released the first one and then the different kind of tours that you had been going on, tour with bands especially bands that I really like 3 Days Grace and Breaking Benjamin, having the connections there. So you're seeing the fact that fans that are really into the more hard rock style are starting to gravitate towards your music, towards your band. So I'm really kind of shocked that they would pass on a second album. However, it does give you the opportunity to basically say, hey, I can do this on my own and then just come up with something like this, because we will get into the album, but I just got to say, and then you come up with something like this, and that's just not being mad. It's like, honestly, I'll put it this way. I really like the album, just to put it out there right away.
Thank you, man. Yeah. I've always been the type of person to make the best out of any situation. And I think I really did that with this last year with not being able to tour. And so I just thought well, what can I do? And that's write and record music. So that's how this album even came to be. Honestly, I don't think I'd have a full album right now if I was still touring as much as I was back in 2019. And you're right. I was so surprised too, because when I got the call that they weren't taking the second album, I was literally on the biggest tour ever up until that point, with Breaking Ben and 3 Days Grace. And I'm over here thinking everything's going great. Everything's going according to plan. This is awesome. And then I get thrown this curveball in the middle of the tour. So I had to immediately start thinking okay, what's plan B? What do we do now? Because there wasn't stopping wasn't an option for me. There was no way.
No, and then there's times where things get thrown in your way like that, where all of a sudden it's going to completely change the course of what you had been expecting. However, that change of course might end up actually being for the better, due to the fact that now you kind of you have this kind of more set mindset at that point. It's okay, you're going to be able to come up with a second album. You got the label to work with, but all of a sudden they're going to say no to it. Now you've kind of got to redirect your thinking. However, it kind of gives you a fresh perspective on everything, with the fact that even though the label didn't want to take it, you are still on one of the biggest tours in rock music of that year with 2019 with Breaking Benjamin and with 3 Days Grace as well. Oddly enough, I saw both those bands in 2019 and it wasn't on the tour with you. So I'm well, it looks like I saw those bands a little too early in the year. So that's kind of on me at that point. But again, it's just something where you took the opportunity. It's instead of just kind of just being bummed out about it, you took the opportunity, you took the situation that came to you and you made the best of it and ran with it instead of just kind of just hoping for the best. Like, oh, want to go back and just wish it could have been like this. No, no, no. This is the way it is. This is what we're going to do. We're going for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a huge believer that everything happens for a reason, especially the hard moments and the moments you don't expect. Because when I look back on my life, every time something hasn't gone according to plan, or something that I thought was like the end of the world actually led to something better. So I've been just keeping that mindset throughout this whole last album creation process, and I'm just very optimistic.
And being very optimistic, especially with this album as well, because listening to everything on American Dream, I mean, taking a look at one thing I always do when I look at these albums and when I try and really go through them is first thing I always do when I look at the songs is I try and listen to them, but then I also try to figure out what the artist is trying to say, what the theme of the song is, because a lot of the times when you find out the theme of the song, then you can understand where the instrumentals are going to really bring forward the emotions of those themes, then where the vocals are going to come to impact that as well, and how the lyrics kind of play off of that. Again, like I kind of brought up with the Escape the Fade album, there are two songs on there. They attack the theme the exact same way, up front, in your face, kind of all about substance abuse. But the sounds are two completely different things. But they hit the meaning the exact same way. So I'm like, how the hell does that happen? So that's kind of how I get into stuff, and especially with what you did in American Dream, a lot of these different themes, it seemed incredibly personal to you with different emotions, different instances, different events in your life that may have impacted you in a certain way to kind of take certain turns, kind of like what happened with the record label, take these certain turns to potentially end up getting into a better situation in the end instead of kind of lamenting in that situation where all of a sudden everything kind of came crashing down on you.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely was just trying to make the most out of anything that's thrown at me. So
And that's pretty much what you have to. It was the biggest thing during the pandemic too, especially with tours being canceled, because you can't just pull back, you can't just push back. It's tours are going to come back at some point, but we had no idea when. Especially, let's take a
yeah,
look back at March and April of 2020. Hell, no one knew what the hell was going on. So instead of just saying, okay, we're waiting until tours come back, it's what can we do now to continue to make ourselves better in a situation. This goes for everybody, but as a musician as well, it's what can you continue to make sure that the band and that your brand grows overall, to make sure that that momentum that you had going out of 2019 and into 2020 continues to stay the course and you don't lose it. And then now going into this new album, I mean, the momentum on you, it doesn't seem like it slowed up at all.
it was hard, man. Like, I think a lot of artists had to get really creative this last year because we couldn't tour and we weren't out there, doing what we do. So we had to think of ways to still connect with people. And I think that's why I did those live stream concerts, because I wanted to feel like A, I was doing something, and B, I was still connecting with people. So yeah, I think this last year really defined a lot of artists, whether they, grabbed the year by the horns and made the most of it, or kind of just let it get to them, which is understandable, because I know at times I was like, what am I doing? Who am I? What's the point anymore? So it was a struggle, but I'm almost in a way glad that it happened, because I was able to come out on the other side with a whole album, with an almost college degree. So like I said, making the best out of everything that gets thrown at you.
Oh, absolutely. And jumping on the live streams as well, because you said you did two of them. When you did those, what was the overall reception on those in terms of how the fans liked them, and then the connection that you're able to make with the fans off that? Because I know there are a good number of bands that have done those live stream events. They have been some like those live stream festivals, like the Save Our Stages one.
Mhm.
For me, I always like when I'm in if I'm gonna watch live music, I want to be in the crowd, in the pit, and if I get hurt, that means I had a good day. That's
Yeah.
pretty much how I always look at it. So with the live stream shows, I got tickets to one. It was the Falling in Reverse one, and I'm like, it was cool and all, but it just did not feel the same as a fan, because again, you're
Yeah.
not there in front of the artist. You're not there with everyone that's enjoying the artist, and everyone's gonna have this incredibly positive experience because everyone relates to some artist that is on that tour, or the artist that is on stage right now, especially if it's more like a festival setting, in a positive way. So what was the overall reception from the fans on your end after you did those live streams, in terms of the way they felt more connected to the band, and the way that, especially without having live shows, an ability to see live music, how did they take that?
I think they actually really loved and appreciated it, because they were missing shows so much. And the cool thing about the live stream concerts that I did was I had a live feed chat going on. So I was talking to them in the moment and they were able to converse with me in real time, even though they weren't there in person. And then after the show, I did virtual meet and greets, which were kind of just like FaceTime call videos. And that just made them so happy. And it was so cool getting to talk to everybody again. So I think they loved it. And I know I did. But you're right. There's no comparison to the real life thing.
No, there really isn't. But you did do the smartest thing in that instance, where it was you had the live feed comment scroll. So when people are putting in their questions, and then the fact that you're answering those questions, like maybe in between certain songs in there, or maybe, do like a 3-song set, like little set, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, take a break for 2 minutes just to answer some questions. Also give the rest of the band a little bit of a break, get some water, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
What ends up happening is those fans that are getting their questions answered, they're going to always go and look back at that with a positive experience because, hey, I went to go watch this live stream and Diamante ended up answering one of my questions. There's a personal thing there. But for everybody else that was in there, it gives them some more connection as well because, hey, she's connecting with her fans. And I might be one of them because if I put my question in there, you never know. It might get answered, might not. But the fact of the matter is there's a chance to actually connect with the artist live once again. Very smart move on your part in my mind.
Thank you. And also because the other thing about live streams is, the song ends and there's no applause. It's just silence. So it can be super awkward if you're not engaging with people in between songs.
Oh, yeah, it kind of can because if you're just sitting there, all of a sudden it's like, okay, what's going on here? You're just kind of like standing there, and all of a sudden like the rest of the band's kind of like moving around certain things, maybe different tunings, getting some different equipment, just getting ready to go. And all of a sudden it's like a 15-second, 20-second break. You're just sitting there just like, just playing with my thumbs. What's going on next? It kind of has a little bit of that awkward feel in there. However, it might be a little funny when looking back at it, but definitely the smarter move to connect with the fans at that time. Really, again, make the most out of the opportunity that you have.
Yeah, especially when you're playing in front of an empty warehouse and you're just looking at, the crew guys and they're just like, yeah.
I'll say if it was possible at that point, you could have had like a group of like 50 or 60 people come in all of a sudden, just get like a little crowd and all of a sudden have like the 50 or 60 craziest people all of a sudden get one of those heavy, more anthemic hard rock songs going. And all of a sudden you're going to see people bouncing off each other. Of course, probably not COVID compliant at that point, but not going to lie, you probably could have found a good amount of people that would have done something like that, myself included.
Oh yeah, I can totally picture you just going nuts.
Oh, trust me. There have been multiple times where I've gotten injured at shows. I've gotten just like black eyes from holding people up as like crowd surfers, and then me holding 2 people up, and here comes somebody. I can't get them because I've got 2 hands, and their combat boot hits me right in the eye. I've gotten whacked in the head before, had a giant cut right above my eye, and I end up tying a piece of someone's flannel around my head. Looked like a pirate, and ended up staying for the rest of the show. Probably should have gotten stitches, but I didn't want to miss Motionless in White. I wasn't going to do that.
That's honestly why when I was touring, it's like kind of more standard to watch the bands you're on tour with from the side of the stage. But I loved going into the actual crowd, especially like up to the front or like at front of house and just kind of looking around the crowd and seeing what everyone was doing. It was always so entertaining and so much fun.
When you were doing that, were you able, like, especially while their bands were on stage, were you able to connect with some of the fans, while maybe talk to, even though, whatever band's playing, if it was like 3 Days Grace, Breaking Benjamin, whoever else might be on there, were you able to converse with the fans a little bit, or maybe connect them and maybe even, just kind of hang out, enjoy the music with them as well, just to, again, create that insanely positive connection where, again, when word gets out on social media, all of a sudden it's like, hey, we went to go see Diamante and this band and this band, this band, and then after Diamante set, she was in the crowd watching the show with us. I mean, that just adds so much more to kind of that what's the perfect word? Kind of the lore of Diamante at that point.
Yeah, my thing is I love being accessible and I love talking to people and meeting everyone. Obviously, when the bands are like in the middle of performing, I'm very respectful. I'm not like taking photos with people while the bands perform, but like in between songs, if someone's like, hey, can we grab a photo with you really quick? I'll totally do it. I love that stuff.
Again, incredibly smart way to go about it in my mind. The other person that I know that does kind of something very similar as well is Joey Tyler from the band Varsity.
Oh,
does
cool.
a very similar style thing where it's like if he's able to just be able to connect with fans, connect them. If he's able to talk with people on social media and comment on the stuff that they send him, he's going to do it. And when I did the whole entire figures out video on you, when I went through the whole entire social media aspect, see how you connect with the fans, I got a very similar vibe off that as well, where if fans are going to reach out to you, connect with you, you're going to end up reaching back out to them. And again, showing that connection and building that, that just basically, again, the lore of Diamante, where all of a sudden it's just, she kind of has this rock star persona, but when it comes to the accessibility of the fans, like, she's the best person to be around. And if you have a chance to talk to her, go for it, because she'll talk to you and you'll enjoy it.
Yeah, and I'll sign all the titties. All the titties. Guys, girls, doesn't matter. And one comment that I got a lot, which was really funny to me, is when people would talk to me, they would go, "Oh, you're so nice. You're such a nice person." I'm like, well, do I look mean on stage? I hope not. Because I really do like people, and I'm very it's funny, in like real and everyday life, I can actually be really shy and a little more concerned and introverted. But when it comes to that environment of playing shows, I'm like the most extroverted person ever. I want to hug everyone. I want to kiss all the babies. And I mean, that was all, pre-COVID, but it's just funny how it works so differently.
It kind of is. But then again, one thing you think about it too is, when it comes to playing live shows, you might be more in your element at that point, where you're just the most comfortable at that point, where say you're kind of going out, maybe go out to a restaurant or something, might be a little bit more just like,
yeah,
kind of good. But all of a sudden you're with people that are just like in that positive vibe of seeing live music. It's just, whoa, hell yeah. You want a picture? Yeah. Woo. Want me to sign this? Okay, here we go. And all of a sudden, next thing you know, you're going to sign someone's forehead and they're going to be like, I'm never going to watch this. Okay, that might be a little creepy, but thanks, man.
Yeah, it's like I'm with my people. It's the best feeling.
Yeah, and then you go up on stage and everyone just like sees it, just like, oh, and all of a sudden you just see, I would say like doves fly out, but nah, that doesn't seem right. All of a sudden just like flames come out. It's like, are you ready to rock? Yeah, here we go. And then next thing you know, people are going crazy in the crowd, having a good old time. And man, okay, that I really need to go. If this is gonna be the case, if that happens, I need to see that live. So if you ever have like walk out and all of a sudden just flames come out of everywhere, I need to see that live.
Well, I think more than flames, what it would be flying tacos, and I'll tell you why. Whenever I have this sort of like move I do on stage where I extend both my arms, like the mic stands here and I'm just like this. And my band guys will always make fun of me and be like, you look like the taco goddess. I'm just sitting like this. And the fans have started to catch on to that phrase. So they're like, any photo they see of me that's kind of larger than life, they're like, taco goddess. So I think if my one like stage superpower would be just tacos shooting out into the crowd, tacos for everybody for free.
Alrighty, so if you come play a show in Milwaukee, I'm going to have to make sure we contact every single Mexican restaurant in the area, every single taco truck in the area to bring as many tacos as possible. So when that happens, we could literally have a taco cannon.
Yes!
Multiple taco cannons, just send tacos literally into the crowd. Maybe at the end of the set, though, so that if you're not the headliner, there's a band going on after you, we all have time to enjoy the tacos instead of just being like trying to go crazy in the crowd while eating at the same time. It would be a challenge. It would be interesting, but they're good tacos. Who wants to waste a taco?
It's kind of like, Steve Aoki, he's got the cake thing. He throws cakes into the crowd. I would totally do that with tacos without like harming people.
All right, that's it. I'm holding you to it. I'm going to wait for you to come to Milwaukee, play a show, and I'm going to be there waiting and thinking, where the hell is the taco cannon? And I was going to be waiting for it the whole entire show. And if for some reason there's a good crazy pick going, all of a sudden I end up bleeding, I might be walking back there, even bleeding. It's like, okay, I'm just waiting for the taco cannon. I'm hungry, guys.
That's got to be a thing one day. That's like the best idea I've had in a long time.
You might need to, especially with how, with it being more of an outdoor thing as well at incarceration, you might want to look into pulling out something like that, because that could be something that would just be a huge moment where all of a sudden, again, everybody, social media wise, you're going to have their phones out. They're going to have cameras out. All of a sudden, flying tacos. Come on, it's a win-win right there. There is no losing with tacos, and then flying tacos being sent into the crowd. Come on. I mean, that might be a moment where Loudwire picks up, like, look at this video of what Diamante did, and all of a sudden Kerrang picks it up, Alt Press picks it up, hell, like ABC News, CBS News, CNN picks up, like, what the heck is going on here? Why is she flinging tacos on the crowd? Well, who doesn't like tacos? Come on now.
they're universal. But can you imagine the band going on right after me being like, man, she got tacos all over the stage again.
I don't think they'd be saying that. I think
they on a tortilla or something.
Unless it's Slipknot going on after, then Tortilla Man might look and be like, it's been done before.
Yeah. Like, yeah, just the original.
Yeah, but I think the band that would be going on after you'd be a little bit more disappointed. Not the fact that there'd be tacos everywhere. Like, we got to follow up a taco cannon. How do we follow this up? Like, is it possible? It is hard. So I want to jump back into the album a little bit more as well, especially the fact that, again, produce it independently, but also produce it during a time and create it during a time when you're also going for your degree in college as well. So what was it like balancing that out? Because we know plenty of times in college with people that are going to college, they're balancing other careers, balancing kids, whatever it might be, and just these other bigger instances that are also alongside it. So what was it like working on this album, creating it, making it happen alongside going to school at the same time?
It was challenging, but also fun at the same time. I've been going to college since 2015, so it's taken me 6 years to do this, and that's because I would do a semester at school, and then I'd book a tour, and I'd, do leave of absence, and I'd go on the tour, and then I'd come back, and I'd do another semester, and that was sort of my life for the last 5 years. And because this last year there was no touring and I was able to just stay home for a year straight, I was able to do the school full time. And I actually was able to balance it pretty well because I think I was just here and I wasn't doing anything else really. And whenever I had a project or a paper, I would always just apply it to the music industry and vice versa. So it was really fun, and I got to learn a lot of things and apply a lot of what I was learning in school to this album release campaign, because I'm kind of in a way acting as my own CEO and my own label. So I would take elements from my marketing class or my accounting class. And it was so interesting to get to do both things at once.
So it's kind of like you're going for your degree, but while also going for your degree, you're basically putting what you're learning to practice at the exact same time as well.
Yeah, and all I would do was just create like a fictional band. I wouldn't say that it was my album, because I feel like that's just weird to do in a class. But I would create a fictional band and a fictional label, and I would do all these album release campaigns using the concepts I was learning in school. So, and then I would apply that to my actual album release campaign. So it was a lot of fun.
So then when it comes to your degree, is it like, what are you majoring in exactly? Because it seems like it could be just like a more concentrated business degree, especially with marketing, accounting, all these other things as well. But it could also be something a little bit more focused on marketing, because that is pretty much what you've been talking about with formulating different campaigns, seeing what's working, and then putting that into practice with the release of American Dream.
I'm going for a business administration degree, so it's still pretty general, but I still found a way to apply everything. Like, for example, I took a GIS class, which is Geographic Information Systems, and I got to book my own tour routing, and based on like certain demographics of income and age and population and music attendance rates, and like book this Northeastern tour that would be like the most ideal cities to go play in for merch sales. So whatever it was, I made it somehow about music industry. And so I was like wearing all these different hats, and it was just so cool.
And that's going to end up going forward, especially once touring resumes as well in 2021, and with the release of American Dream as well, just seeing how this is going to end up playing out. It's the fact that you have that that wherewithal and that knowledge behind it, especially going through college. And not only that, but the fact that the business degree, business administration, it does have a little bit more of like a broader context to it. However, I kind of know exactly where you're coming from, because when I was in college, I applied for the business school, didn't get in the business school, so I went with the most business thing outside of that, which was economics. So it was, again, broader, had a business management minor. So it's like, okay, I kind of got some of that as well, but it's just, as broad as it was, it just at times I've still used some of that stuff with everything when it comes to the podcast, and City Rocks, with all of this stuff. So I do kind of still use it, which is kind of crazy. But in your case, again, you're doing this literally in real time. And when you're planning a tour with, like in your class, it's something that you're going to end up using going forward. Different marketing campaign for the album. You're doing that at the exact same moment in real life. It is the craziest thing, but when it comes to just like, okay, are you going to get your degree? Well, you're literally doing this in real life. So it's like, if someone's like, well, what kind of example can you provide? Look at how American Dream did. Yeah, that's all you need to know.
Here's my thesis project.
That wouldn't be a bad idea, though. Do you feel it's like, and your professor's like, okay, what is it? Just hand the album. That's my thesis project. What? Just look into it. Look into how everything's going with it. Look at the chart numbers, everything. You'll see why.
That's satisfactory, right? Just the album. Okay, cool. Thanks. Bye.
Honestly, that might be with how good this album is. That would probably just take care of it, honestly.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. You're so right. I didn't think about it that way, that I was doing both in real time. So
it's just something that, again, I'm always curious to hear about that, because that's something that I don't think really any other artist really has gone through at the exact same time, especially with the fact that COVID's happening. We're able to not only take time and actually focus on school as well, but then work on this album, but then somehow like tie the two together at the exact same time in perfect harmony.
yeah. And I'm also definitely the kind of person who, if you tell me I can't do something, that just makes me want to do it even more. And so growing up, ever since high school, even, I got it from both sides. I would have my teachers in school telling me, you know, you can't be doing this music thing. You can't be playing shows. If you want to do well in school, you need to focus on school. And then I had people in the music industry, whether it was label people or producers, telling me, you can't go to college. That's crazy. You have an album you need to be worried about. Like, college is for normal kids. Don't do that. And well, my mom, she ended up going to Harvard when she was 28. And I think she graduated when she was 32 with 4 kids. And so she's just my ultimate role model. And anytime I think of her story growing up, I was like, well, if she can do that, I can do this. This is nothing compared to that. So I kind of just wanted to not listen to either side and just prove everyone wrong, because it's definitely this thing of you have to choose one or the other. And I wasn't about that.
It's kind of like they want you to specialize in one thing or the other. It's like, oh, if you're going to go to college, then no, forget about music. If you're going to focus on music, no, forget about college. But the fact of the matter is like what your mom going through that and able to graduate from Harvard. Let's put that again.
I know. She's a superhero.
With 4 kids, that's mind blowing. So being able to go through college while working on an album as well, I mean, compared to that, it kind of seems like, you know, this will be a walk in the park in a way. But having that inspiration there, that close ties of an inspiration, really had to put it more into perspective in terms of that point in time where, you know, you feel might be a little burnt out, or you kind of just like, oh, this might not be worth it. But all of a sudden you think about that and you're just thinking, nah, I got this.
Yeah. And I tell my mom all the time, like, when it comes time for me to, like, you know, share that graduation moment, I'm going to post a picture of us at your graduation, because I actually got to go to her graduation, which is so cool. And I'm going to post your graduation photo here and mine here. And then she starts bawling. She's like, oh my God, my first kid going to college.
Well, now I'm going to end up waiting for the moment when those pictures are posted, like, because I know you're probably going to post them online. All of a sudden, be like, oh, I heard that before. I knew that. Yay.
I knew before everybody else.
It's like, take that, everybody else, in a very fun and playful way, because the most important part of the fact is, again, at that moment, you're going to achieve something, and you're going to make your mom even more proud of you than she already is right now. I mean, the fact that you're going to college and working on an album, the fact that you have created this, I mean, this music for yourself to the point where with the second album coming out, I mean, I was hearing about this like pretty much right when it was announced that it was going to be released. I had people messaging me like, hey, you know, Diamante's releasing a new album. I'm just like, well, now I do. So what's going on with it? And then I'm just thinking my whole entire self, man, it wouldn't be kind of cool to do a podcast with her on the run up to this. And then boom, here we are.
That's so cool. I love that. That's so full circle.
It really is. And I'll say this when it comes to albums, I want to jump into it a little bit more. And when it came to coming in hot, especially after listening when I did my whole entire Kevin Figures Out video on your music to see if I was just like figure out, do I like theirs or not? Because I had really no idea of anything about your music. So that's how I kind of go about it. And I liked it. And the one thing I was a little concerned about after was you definitely have more of that like anthemic hard rock sound, very powerful vocals. The one thing I was afraid of was the fact that it could potentially, and I think might be what the label thought was, well, kind of pigeonhole you into that kind of realm. So I'm like, I kind of want to see a little bit more. But then the singles that had been released prior to 2020, and that are also on the album as well, I was starting to see that growth a little bit more. So I was getting excited. And then the songs that have not been released that are going to be released on May 7th with American Dream, seeing that growth come even further. I'm like, that expansion of sound, that expansion of like reliability, and the fact that Diamante can create this whole entire larger broadband sound with different styles, different influences as well. Everything that I wanted to see happen ended up happening on this album.
Oh, that's awesome, because that's totally what I was going for. I think with that first album, I think with anyone's first album, really, when you're with the label, you kind of have to play ball in a sense where you can't, not that you would want to be difficult, but you can't really express exactly what it is that you want to do, or which songs you want on the album, or which songs you don't want on the album, or how you want things to sound even. So this time around, just having this creative control and all this freedom to kind of do whatever I wanted to do, and write what I wanted to write, and pick the songs, and pick who I was going to collaborate with and how they were going to sound. I think that's why you hear that growth, because there are no limitations on this album. It was just whatever I felt like doing, I did it.
Oh, absolutely. Because there are times where when I was looking at it, it was with with some of the singles that had come out with it beforehand. I'm like thinking about some of these, and it's okay. Take a look at one like God, I don't want to mess up the name of the song because I always mess it up in my mind. So I'm gonna look at my notes real quick to make sure I get it right. Obvious, because that was the one that ended up getting, like, when I was going through my run through initially, it was like this was the one that ended up like confirming that I liked your sound as much as possible, because I saw the growth from, instead of that more anthemic hard rock sound, I was like, okay, now we're seeing more of this hard rock sound, just straightforward, kind of just driven bass. And it reminded me a lot of what I would listen to when I listened to early 3 Days Grace with Adam Gontier. And just going through it, I was just picking up on certain things. I'm like, literally, after listening to that song, I thought, wouldn't it be interesting to see if you take a 3 Days Grace song and just put Diamante over it? And then all of a sudden, right when I was thinking that up, I saw a live video of you performing with Matt Wallace. And I'm like, well, they already beat me to it. But it was just that I got the same feeling from your vocals in terms of just this overall powerful sense on Obvious that I got when I first listened to Adam Gontier on the original 3 Days Grace album. So I'm seeing, okay, we're seeing that growth once again. We're seeing a little bit more of that concentrated hard rock growth, but outside from that anthemic sound, a little bit more just straightforward. But there was one, I gotta find where I highlighted it, because I was laughing hysterically when I wrote this, but it made so much sense. And it was on the song I Love Myself for Hating You, because it does have more of a poppier sense to it.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, it kind of has, like, especially when you start out, it's like, it kind of feels like a influence of like all of Joan Jett, Katy Perry, and Paramore at the same time. Like, it has that. It has that pop feel to it, but it also has kind of this like more like upfront rock kind of style, but also a little bit more of this pop punk flow to it. So I'm like, okay, this is interesting. But the chorus, the way it ends up going, and it kind of has a little bit more of this poppier sense, but then it goes to more of that heavier kind of just in your face kind of Joan Jett, like more punk rockish kind of feel. I literally wrote this. It kind of is like, feels like if Taylor Swift decided to go heavy, drank some stone cold cans of whoop ass and made a song. I'm like, this is literally what Diamante did on this one. It was stone cold can of whoop ass. Taylor's like in like Taylor Swift. If she did that, boom, this is I Love Myself for Hating You right here, especially with the way the chorus was. It took me a while to kind of like think about that, but all of a sudden when I heard it, I'm like, yeah, that just seems the right way to describe it.
I love that description. That is like, you named all my favorites right there. Joan Jett, you said Katy Perry? Did you say?
Yeah, Katy Perry and Paramore.
Paramore, Taylor. I'm a huge Taylor Swift fan too. I love her songwriting. So that's just like incredible. And I think I Love Myself for Hating You is definitely one of the more experimental songs on the album. And I purposely did that because I grew up on pop rock music. That's totally my first love. That was like Katy Perry and Kelly Clarkson and Pink and Avril. And so I wanted to incorporate some of that into this album because it's a part of who I am. And it's definitely a part of my story and how I got to this place.
Oh, absolutely. And again, just putting all those influences in there, I don't know why. It just created that. When I first thought about Stone Cold Can Whoop Ass on a song in like a Taylor Swift form, like, this is it, but it works so well, especially with the vocal control on yours in the chorus, well, because it kind of has more of that higher poppier sense in the beginning. But when you say I love myself for you, just all of a sudden it gets to that more rougher. I'm just keep thinking Joan Jett, Bad Reputation. I was literally thinking about this, and I'm just thinking, man, where could this really fit into if I sped this up a little bit more? I'm thought about taking the scene from Shrek where they put Bad Reputation over it and just have Shrek basically destroying all those knights in the arena. I was like, what if I just amplified turned up the speed on this song a little bit and decided to put it over that? Let's just see what happens, and it might work out really well. I haven't done that yet. I might do that after this podcast just to see how it plays out.
I want to see that so bad because I know exactly what scene you're talking about.
I have used that scene before as like a promotional video for the podcast. I might have to pull it out again if it works, because if it works by putting that song over it, I am definitely going to use it.
That's amazing. Yeah, I remember recording that chorus and getting to that end of the chorus, and I was doing like the I love myself, and it came out naturally. And Howard goes, I like that. Can you exaggerate that? Can you do that even more? So that's why you hear like the I love myself, right? And it's so much. I've only sung it live twice now, but it's so much fun to do live.
Well, when you get out and playing live shows again, please make sure you play it, because I know a lot of people are going to really enjoy it, and especially with that, just that, okay, I can't do that. I can do some weird voices, but when it comes to singing, I can't do shit, so I'm not even going to try.
Yeah, that was pretty good. It's pretty spot on.
Okay, then maybe I'll try a little bit more at some points down the road, but we'll see what happens. I mean, if I'm going to sing, I'll probably send a me going, bleh, and that's about it. Go all Chris Motionless or Sam Carter with the blacks.
There you go.
We'll see, again, we'll see how it turns out. But then there are other songs on this album as well. Again, of course, taking a look at the cover of Iris that you did with Ben Burnley. And again, that's another one of the singles. I do want to get some of those deep cuts as well. But listening to Iris, again, it was just the trade-off on vocal style between you and Ben Burnley, because Ben's going to have this more unique vocal set. Whenever you hear Ben's vocals, you know instinctively that it's him. There's no getting around it. And it was a really interesting thing to see, because when you were singing, especially like more in the first part of the verses, I felt like especially more like this like softer kind of breathier quality to your vocals. And I was like, okay, this is going to be interesting. But then hearing Ben come off with a softer vocal right after it is just the biggest thing, was seeing how that contrast played out in a more melodic rock, more serious song in a way, even though it's a cover, but it does have a serious subject matter. However, then all of a sudden hearing when the trade-off is happening, or the consistent duetting of you on top, kind of Ben underneath with the vocals, and with more of that raw, vigorous hard rock sense, more of that more powerful vocal that both of you have. Hearing the contrast on that, it showed the absolute power behind your vocal, especially in the chorus, but also when you heard Ben's as well, because it had a little bit that deeper, rougher tone, but everyone knows what it is. The contrast made both stand out, but made the qualities of both vocals stand out to be the best possible.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that was such a fun song to record, the vocals especially. Ben has that super iconic, like gravelly voice, and he has that one line in the second verse, and you bleed just to know you're alive, and he does his whole Ben thing, and it's incredible. And we recorded it on a tour bus, which was a first for me. It's really cool. He has like a Star Wars themed tour bus. If nobody knew that, it's like all white. It's amazing. And he actually led that vocal session, because he has a certain way of how he likes to record vocals, which is sort of like 2 lines, and you just do them over and over and over until you're like absolutely nailing them. And and we were just brainstorming back and forth, like, do you want to take this part? I'll take that part, or you take that part. And I'm so happy with how it turned out. And I think I love the juxtaposition of the more soft and then the more hard rock thing. I think makes the song so much more dynamic.
It definitely does. And then even the deeper cuts as well, especially on this album, I saw more of that as well with the more dynamic sounds within your vocals, where I saw some that maybe a little bit more lower tone, a little bit more concentrated tone, but not as powerful. Saw some more of that breathiness style and some more of that more powerful upfront style, because when I'm thinking about the breathiness in the vocals, I keep thinking about when I listened to Bring Me the Horizon's latest EP, the Post-Human Survival Horror one, the one that came out in October, and with the track that they did with Amy Lee, where Amy Lee's vocals were more breathy, just to kind of bring out more of that just soft kind of, also it kind of like in a little bit of way, like kind of softer, sometimes doomy, sometimes a little bit more light, sometimes a little bit more just relaxing at times. It depends on what you're going for. And when I was thinking about that, especially listening to your vocals, it kind of brought up some of those memories as well, where it's like, this kind of reminds me of like when Amy Lee goes a little bit breathy, because it just kind of provides that, especially at certain times, like a tranquil power to everything. It's kind of weird in a way, but also kind of cool at the same time.
I like doing that approach, especially if it's a moment in the song that's really vulnerable or personal, and you want the listener to feel like your voice is right here in their face. And so when you get up onto the mic and you sort of whisper like that, it creates that effect. And I love it because it's like you're talking to them directly. So
I didn't even think about that beforehand, because when I was listening to these songs with your vocals, I mean, when I was going through my review of it, because I will put a review of the album on YouTube as well, and when I was looking at the vocal section of it, I was like, I can't really find anything that I dislike about Diamante's vocals on this album. And the reason was because with your vocals, no matter how they went, especially with kind of like the breathy stuff as well, it was how everything flowed between one piece to the next. It was just like, okay, we're going to the, like on American Dream, that's probably the when it comes to the deeper cuts or the ones that haven't been released yet, the titular song, that's probably my favorite out of all the tracks that you haven't released yet, because going through the verse, I'm like, okay, kind of have more of that just concentrated, deeper style, but all of a sudden to the pre-chorus, you get kind of breathy, and it just kind of pulls us back a little bit. I was like, okay, what's going on here? But then hearing that like classic, more Diamante anthemic, full on power hard rock vocal style in the chorus, I'm just like, okay, here we go. Plus the way that you start out the song with that chorus sound, but also starting out with like the revving up of an engine, especially on like an older muscle car, I'm just thinking, what the hell am I getting myself into, and why haven't I heard this beforehand? Like it was kind of like I jumped into the album, I'm just turned it on. Within the first 10 seconds, I'm just like, alrighty, this is going to be a good one. Let's sit in and just enjoy. And I probably heard this album preparing for this interview, probably, I want to say 8 or 9 times, maybe 10. I have no idea how many times I've actually gone through it. I've lived with it for a little bit.
That's awesome. I mean, American Dream is actually one of my favorite, if not my favorite song on the album, because of that reason. It's so all over the place in kind of the best way possible. And I got to give props to Howard for the car noises, because that was totally his idea. That came on a little bit after the fact. And like in the bridge, you hear the engine revving up to the final chorus. And it just, I love it because the lyrics in that song are super cinematic. And I'm like being very detailed, like the roses on his neck, and we're in the wild, wild west, and the wrinkles on his face, or whatever I say. And I think it's such a cool movie song. And so having those sound effects totally brought the song to life.
It definitely has that cinematic feel, because even one of the things I was thinking about was, okay, I'm thinking American Dream, of course, kind of thinking more of that classic, just, just always like living the dream, Americana style, driving the country, maybe on a motorcycle, something like that, or if it was me, driving around in a Dodge Challenger Hellcat, because I think those cars are fucking awesome. So when I was listening to the song as well, especially there were certain little nuances where it's like, okay, going out west, I think it even put in Boston at some point at the beginning of the song. So I'm like, okay, you're definitely putting a little bit more of those personal touches in there in terms of the lyrics that are more concentrated on your story in terms of this. However, again, it's not something that's like super, super, super duper specific to the point where it's not like we can't just replace Boston with, like, if we're listening to it as fans, we can't just replace Boston with our hometown and then it would still fit. Like, it's perfectly fine. It's not something where it's like, it's something that's like a super specific story that would only ever happen to you, and people are trying to listen like, that's not going to fit. No, not the case here. This is something where people can literally take out pieces of those lyrics, relate their own personal lives to them, and kind of like, again, switch different like names up of certain things. And the emotion, the feeling is still going to absolutely fit. Yeah,
I do that all the time with songs. Like, there's a Taylor Swift song, I think it's the You Belong With Me one, and she sings like, she wears short skirts, I wear sneakers. And ever since I can remember, I changed that lyric to she wears short skirts, I wear Converse, because I wore Converse when I was a kid and not sneakers. So yeah, I think that's totally doable with this song.
Definitely. And one thing I'll even think about this one too is, especially with a growing fan base as well, when it comes to different rock radio stations. I'm not talking about like Sirius XM, or I'm talking about more of just your classic rock radio stations in your hometown, whatever it might be. Here in Milwaukee, it's 102.9 The Hog. it's like, this is the type of song where, especially with that intro, the revving up of the engine, and then the powerful intro that comes in with the style of vocals from the chorus, I'm thinking, especially with the way the song progresses right after that, this is a song where I feel like almost any single rock radio station in America would pick this up and be like, no matter if you like rock or not, this will be a song where right when you hear the intro of this, you're going to be like, okay, I want to listen to this whole entire thing. You're not changing the station. And of course, there's going to be some people after that listen to the end of it might be like, not for me. But there's going to be a lot of people that would listen and say, okay, if I hadn't heard of this artist yet, what's her name? Who is this? And where can I find more of her music?
That's awesome. That's totally the goal with any song, but especially that song.
And then let's see if we can get this one in a movie as well, because it would either be perfect for like the intro to a movie or like as a movie outros. It's like, okay, we're going to get to the credits at this point and just kind of ending it with that, just with the way it flows. Oh my God, that would be something.
Yeah, I picture it in like a comedy crime movie or a comedy action movie.
Okay, we're putting this in Rush Hour 4.
Yeah, let's make it happen.
Make it happen. If we can bring Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker back together for a buddy cop comedy, I am all for it, because those two guys are hilarious together. And, well, I love all three of the movies that came up with the Rush Hour series so far. Why not do a fourth? Plus, Jackie Chan will still do his own stunts, and we'll all be happy for it.
Love it. I love those movies.
One other thing with the album, too, was, especially because we're taking a look more at that rock style, I also mentioned that there's times with with certain songs where they have more of this, like, ballad style to them, so they're slower, they're a little bit more melodic. And there were times on this album where you pulled that out and I was thinking, this is a little interesting, just to see, okay, how is this going to work? How's this going to go well? And on a song like, which was it, Unlovable was the one that did that? Yeah, I wanted to make sure that, because otherwise I was going to be really mad at myself if I messed that up, because that one was more of that just straightforward, more had an acoustic ballad behind it, a lot of piano in it as well. It was, again, the vocal control on it just really showed the fact that if you're going to try and slow someone, make more of a ballad style approach to it with more of an acoustic setting, you can definitely do that, and it definitely works here. Or go all the way to the end of the album with Hopeless, because it starts out the same way, but then you go from this more acoustic ballad track to more of this hard rock ballad track with the full instrumentals behind you, and you bring more of that powerful vocal right to the back end of it as well once the hard instrumentals come in. And I'm thinking, okay, we're definitely seeing that transition here once again, to the point where what I wanted to see on this album in terms of the growth of your range and the growth of what you can do overall, every single thing, again, that I wanted to see happen and listen to and hear happen literally happened through these 10 songs. And the Iris cover on acoustic as well. Or was that the obvious cover on acoustic? God, I'm going to feel bad.
Yeah. No, you got it. You got it right.
It was obvious? Woo! Okay. I had to check that again. Okay. Well, I messed up the first time, so if you want to roast me for that one, go ahead. Everyone roast me at some point during these podcasts. Mostly myself, though.
No, thank you so much. I'm actually really proud of those ballads, because they are definitely different for what I normally do, especially a song like Hopeless is actually the first love song I've ever even written. I never write love songs. I guess, I don't know, maybe just didn't feel the need to, but a song like Unlovable is just incredibly vulnerable, and it's about one of my worst insecurities, which is the fear that maybe I'm just too hard to love. So I wanted to write from that point of view. And that song is really interesting too, because Neil had the idea of having a ballad on the record that didn't have any drum on it whatsoever. No drums at all, just you and a piano and maybe some strings. And I think that's why that song's so powerful, because all you're listening to is that and the lyric, and there's nothing else clouding what you're supposed to be hearing. And then Hopeless has that cool, like you said, trajectory of where it starts out like that and then it goes into this like epic ending. And I think that's also why I put it at the end of the album, because it feels like a finale in a way.
Yeah, it really does in a way. And going to Unlovable as well, because kind of what you said about being more open on that track and showing more of the kind of fears that you have within yourself that maybe you're not lovable. Again, there's times in life where people do feel that. I mean, there's times in life where I've felt that as well. And there's times in life where I think the same thing, where it's just like, maybe I'm just not somebody that's meant to be loved in the end. Who knows, whatever happens. Maybe it's just kind of what I do with life. Maybe on your end, maybe it's just the fact with you being on the road a lot, especially when touring resumes, you with your music as well, kind of this like with how, like kind of like that sheer laser focus in on there. maybe there's times where people just don't necessarily connect with that and can't really fully support that without feeling insecure themselves. Like, again, there's a lot of different things that are happening there in that song. But being open about that and showing those vulnerabilities will do a couple of things. One, it will allow you to just let those emotions out through your vocals and through that song and just really deliver that message to, in a sense, give yourself just this kind of relief, the fact that you understand that emotion. Secondly, people that go through something like that can look at that song and then they can have like a tangible explanation for what they're feeling. It's like, how does it feel to go through something like this? How does it feel to feel unlovable? It's like, well, listen to what Diamante had to say about that and put out about that in her song, because it matches the emotion perfectly, but also allows people to relate a little bit more to stuff in their lives, along with connect with you as an artist at the same time as well. So always be more open, be more honest on these certain tracks. It's going to end up being something that people are really going to end up being drawn to and connect to.
Absolutely. And that is probably the most valuable advice that Howard gave to me. Even starting out on the first album, he would tell me, really try to write from that vulnerable, almost uncomfortable place, because that's what's going to have people really resonate with your music. And he said he's worked with artists who they could never really tear that wall down, because it's hard. It's not easy writing from that place, especially because sometimes, most of the time, you can be ashamed of how you feel about certain things. And he would tell me that it kind of hindered them in a way. So I really had to push myself to write from that perspective. But I started realizing that it's actually really cathartic. And there's this amazing release when you just get it all out there in the open. First of all, on paper, then you sing it. And then that third phase where it just goes out into the world and you can finally just let it go, because it's now theirs to listen to, and you don't have to think about it anymore. And you're just all those negative feelings are out, and that's it.
And that's something that not only as an artist that you can use in your music, but for everybody else that's listening, that's something that we can also use to deal with certain things that we've gone through in life in terms of different insecurities we have, or different moments or times in life that we're afraid to express because we're afraid of what people might think. Hell, I mean, recently did this whole entire thing on Facebook where someone tagged me and someone was like, oh, 10 albums that, influence your musical history and like what you listen to today, but just post the album cover. That's it. I'm like, nah, I'm putting full explanations for mine. And it was somewhere like I've gone through certain things and talked about, like I've talked about just when I was in middle school, where all of a sudden, like I went to a different school and I was trying to fit in with all the kids. So I was listening to all the music they listened to, even though I didn't like it. And then I kind of became an outcast once again when I started really listening to Disturbed. Then listening to Notes from the Underground by Hollywood Dead right after my grandma died, just kind of going through that. Talked about different albums like which one's Beautiful Lie by 30 Seconds to Mars, and then Wolves by Rise Against, and also talk about the mass amount of depression and suicidal tendencies I had at the times I was really listening to those. And it's somewhere like I opened up about that, and now it's, again, I've talked about a little bit more, but this is something where I actually, like, to a lot of people that could actually see it, I opened up to them similar to what you did with the music as well. And it does have this relieving feeling where it's out there now. If people for some reason want to pull that out and be like, oh yeah, they feel this or they're like that. Well, everyone knows. Who gives a shit? You can't use that against me. I'm okay with it.
Exactly.
It's like it's kind of like the last scene in 8 Mile with Eminem, where it's just like, yeah, I'm gonna take everything that you are gonna try and use against me, and I'm gonna put it out there for you. You want to know why? Because then you can't use it.
I love that movie. It's so good.
So it's kind of like, especially on a song like Unlovable, it's like exactly what you did, where it's like, okay, now it's like certain insecurities, certain fears. All of a sudden, you wrote them down, you performed them, and then you release it out into the world, and all of a sudden, it's kind of like, you know what? It's kind of okay to way. And one of the things, especially with the vocals on that track as well, I've talked with Sahaj from the band Ra and Justin DeBleek, the former guitarist from Ice Nine Kills. We were talking about different things with vocals, and there's a believability factor where it's like when you listen to these songs, especially when artists are talking about something personal, can you fully believe that this is what they're talking about? Can you believe that it's authentic? And most times when people are writing very, very personal, you can really feel that. You can hear that. You can just take it all in. On this song, especially Unlovable, that was achieved to a perfection. I mean, it was nuts. It was because like right when I started listening to it, I was able to really pick apart the whole entire meaning of the song and really the feeling of it through maybe the first 15 seconds. But it just was something where it was incredible to do that, just because then I was able to go on the whole entire ride of the song and really just understand the emotion, then even related to myself throughout it as well. It was just this whole immersive experience going through it. And again, that's like halfway through the album, and I still had another half to go. I'm thinking, how the hell am I going to get through this other half and just be this amazed at it? And I'm just like going through the next half. I'm just like, yeah, this holds up to the first half very well.
Well, thank you so much. That is a huge compliment to me. And I think one other thing to add about Unlovable is it has this sort of accountability factor, because there are a lot of songs on the album where I'm going like, this is what you did to me and how you hurt me and yada, yada, yada. And so I thought it was important to have a song where I'm saying, well, if it hasn't worked with this person and that person and this person, maybe I'm the problem. Maybe there's something wrong with me. And so I like calling myself out, because that way no one else can do it. I've already done it. You know?
But, and not only that, but taking a look in that instance, it's another smart way to go about it as well, because then you're actually taking a look at all different factors in certain decisions where it's like, okay, if this isn't going right, this isn't going right, and there's different people involved, maybe it's me. And then all of a sudden it allows you to take stock in like kind of like inventory within yourself. Like, okay, is it me? Is it me? Is it not me? And just really analyze the situation. And if you don't actually open up and potentially think that, you know, in certain instances, you might actually be the one that's causing these problems instead of other people or other things in life that are causing these problems, then at times, if you find out that it's you, whatever it might be, does it kind of suck at times? Yeah. But the good part about it is when you realize it's you, that's the first step to reversing course, because who's the only person that can change you? And that's you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the only way you can grow. If you're the kind of person who's like, no, I'm perfect and there's nothing wrong with anything that I do or how I, you know, operate in life, how I treat people, you're just going to stay here the entire time. So I think it's super important to really take a good look at yourself and see, what do I need to do to grow as a person?
Exactly. And kind of bringing it back full circle as well, because something you said earlier was with, you know, just taking a look at certain things that happened with the pandemic, with after the first album, the label's like, nah, we don't want the second one. Instead of being fixed on what was supposed to happen and being able to kind of change course when it comes to like this, when it comes to writing and being open about what things you've gone through and questioning, you know, is it me that's potentially the problem in these certain instances? It allows you to open yourself up to those possibilities, to take a look at those and not be so fixed on one certain thing to the point where you might be fixed on something, but the answer that you're looking for, you're never going to achieve because your mindset is like, and your vision is, you know, tunnel vision. You're just like, I can't see anything else around me. I'm straight forward. And now I look weird that I'm looking with my hands through my eyes. Okay. Well, that maybe I shouldn't do that, but oh well, kind of look funny. So got tunnel vision. Woo! So one thing I always like to do is when it comes to these albums is I always put together a full-on final thought. And I'm sorry if I turn my head because I write this down. It's on page 16 of my notes because I went through this incredibly deep. And my final thought when it comes to American Dream, the album. When I first heard Diamante and I did that Kevin Figures Out video, I saw that anthemic hard rocker that had a great voice, but I was also a little nervous that she might be pigeonholed with that kind of sound over time. Once I took a look at the singles, I started beginning to break out with more of some of that hard rock sound that took away a little bit of anthemic style a bit and could see a growth. But when you get to the deeper cuts on American Dream, not only does she still have that anthemic style, but can also mix it with some more pop elements, more ballad elements as well. And the growth that I was hoping to see again from Diamante on her second album as a musician and a vocalist was something I was a little worried about at first, but all those worries and concerns have been taken care of. They are off the table. No more worries, no more concerns. And there is no doubt that this is no sophomore slump. And I literally am calling out, how many vocalists I have on here? 4. I'm calling out Ash Costello, Taylor Momsen, Maria Brink, and Lizzie Hale, because you 4 women, you're like, when it comes to rock and metal, kind of like that top vocalist for more the modern era. You guys are going to have to make some room because Diamante is going to join you after this one.
I love that. Thank you so much.
So again, with the fact that the album is coming out, I hope that as many people as possible are going to be able to hear this thing. I'm going to make sure it is as many people as possible as well, to the point where when even I heard about the fact that I was going to get a chance to interview, I'm telling people like, yeah, I'm going to get a chance to interview Diamante. And I've heard some people look at me like, how the hell did you swing that? And I just started laughing. I'm like, my secrets. But then even with certain friends as well, like I've been telling them, it's like, hey, you might want to check this out when it drops. And all of a sudden I've heard friends, oh, is it good? And I'm just sending them Snapchats, just like laughing and like nodding my head. I'm like, it's kind of like, I know a secret that you don't know, but I know you're going to know it soon. So you're going to want to listen to this thing because it is powerful. It is dynamic and it is definitely a record worth the listen. And on my little Excel sheet that I always have for this to keep track of everything. At the end of the year, I always do a bunch of top 10 lists, like best albums, worst albums, best songs, worst songs, most prized album, most disappointing album, best emerging album as well. I've already got this one right now on the watch list for best album of the year 2021. It will likely end up in the top 10 somewhere. It is dynamic as all hell. It is the perfect growth from the first album as well. And I cannot wait to see how this ends up taking your career and just continue that momentum of going up and maybe even more exponential, where all of a sudden instead of just going straight, it's more like whoop, like Dogecoin to the moon.
Oh, thank you so much, man.
And hopefully once, touring resumes, everything comes back, I need to make sure I get to see you play live at some point, because
yeah,
I mean, I got to get into one of these crazy crowds, and 2, Taco Cannon.
Taco Cannon.
If not, I will probably end up, because I'm doing this at a wedding in October, where you ever seen those TikToks where it's like the flower men?
No, I haven't seen those ones.
Okay, so there was this trend that started, and one of my good friends, his fiance asked me and my 2 friends to this, where they don't have flower girls. They have a guy that will literally go down to like The Stroke by Billy Squier and kind of like get all seductive with it at the same time as well. And they want me and my 2 friends to do this for them. And of course, we graciously accepted, because we're 3 goofballs and we just do crazy stuff. And my idea was, you ever seen one of those like air Zukas? It's like a big plastic thing, and you just like have this plastic in the back, you pull it back, and when you let it go, this big like amount of air just comes flying at you.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to put a bunch of flower petals in it, and I'm like, if you don't have a taco cannon by the time I get to see you play live for the first time, I'm going to bring a freaking air Zuka, I'm going to fill it with tacos, and I'm just going to do it myself.
I love it. That's incredible.
So we're going to make that happen. And before we send you on your merry way, Diamante, before we close out this podcast, I always like to give the artist, whoever's on, a chance to say anything they want to say, plug what they want to plug, including the new album, American Dream, coming out May 7th, 2021, for everybody that wants to know about that. So whatever you need to say, whatever you want to say, the floor is yours.
Just that, yeah, album's out May 7th. I have some really incredible music videos that I shot for these songs that I can't wait to show everyone. I'm talking like next level. I'm so excited. Festivals in September. I've announced Incarceration, and then hopefully, knock on wood, that a full tour happens in 2022.
Well, is there any wood back here? Yeah, my entertainment center's wood, so I'll knock on that, because hopefully we can make that happen. And now it is time for me to end this podcast with the 3 things I always end it with for everybody. First off, when it comes to American Dream, it comes out on May 7th. When it comes to finding Diamante online on her social media, on YouTube, where you can check out, buy some of the, maybe like if there's a vinyl copy, CD, whatever it is, physical copies, some merch as well, where you can stream the album. I know what you're thinking. Can we just get like a one-stop shop place where we can have all the links and just take care of that ourselves? Well, I'm going to take care of that all for you. So if you look at the description of the podcast, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeart Radio, you'll see Find Diamante online, and you will have all the links there for you to like her stuff, follow her stuff, subscribe to it, buy some merch, and make sure you pre-save the new album, American Dream, coming out on May 7th. So don't forget about that, because that is a very important thing to do, because this album is, it's damn good. Let's just put it that way. It's damn good.
Thank you so much, man.
And the second thing I always end with is, when I have guests on the podcast that I enjoy so much, I always like to make a certain promise. And this has pretty much happened 100% of the time that I've made this promise. And I'm definitely doing it on this one as well. So the promise is not an if, it's a when. When I get to see you perform live for the first time, whether it's at some festival, whether it's at a show somewhere else, or here in my hometown, Milwaukee, it can be one of 2 things. 1, my classic is always, first round's on me. However, tacos on me. That could be the second.
All right. I love it.
Just when I get a chance, I'll just be like, remember that promise, the tacos on me, or the first round's on me? Yeah. I'm making sure that happens.
I love that. That's amazing.
So Diamante, to end this podcast in all good conscience, I can't say goodbye, because this album is damn good. I would love to have you back in the podcast again at some point in the future. And again, made that promise. I want to see you play live at some point, and I got to make good on my debts of either first round or a bunch of tacos, or if I just bring the taco cannon myself, we'll take care of it right then and there. So I cannot end this podcast in all good conscience with a goodbye, so I will end it with this. See you later.
Thank you so much for having me, man. I'll see you soon.
See you soon. Ooh. Well, folks, that was my interview with Diamante, and let me tell you, again, American Dream comes out Friday, May 7th, 2021. If you're listening to this podcast the day after the episode releases or anytime after that, yes, you can go check it out now. Guys, I told her that I'm putting this on as a album of the year watch list one in the top 10 right now, and I'm not kidding. It is that good. Even though you guys know me, I like some of the heavier, harder stuff as well. The musicianship on this one is fantastic. Her growth as a vocalist is fantastic. When it comes to those women in rock and metal that have those like top tier echelon voices and those like that influence, again, like your Lizzie Hales, your Taylor Mountains, your Maria Brinks, even Ash Costello's, yeah, Diamante is going to end up having a place up there. So they got to move over. Plus, man, I this one just kind of blew my mind with the fact that I got to actually talk to Diamante on the podcast. Again, another artist that I did in the Kevin Figures Out series, get to talk to them all about their music and really get to talk to them also about what I think about all their stuff. And God, this was just such a fun podcast. I hope you guys like it. And remember, tell someone about this podcast. That's your little toll for the day. Post it on social media. Tell a friend, tell your family, tell somebody, whoever it might be. I just want to thank you for that. And on that note, that's going to be for today, guys. Thank you for watching, listening to the Chord Progression podcast by MSC Rocks for Rock and Metal Thrive. Please check out American Dream by Diamante when it drops on May 7th, 2021. It is a great album. Again, link description below. So, my name is Kevin, and you guys know how I end every single one. Up to the big, healthy, and hearty. See ya! Yeah!